Hey people, so I wanted to make a short video about pelvic positioning. So I mentioned it in our lecture, and I know that it can be kind of confusing. So here's the pelvis. I want to talk about anterior tilt and posterior tilt. Make sure that you guys understand that. Remember, anterior tilt is spilling the bowl of the pelvis forward. Posterior tilt would be spilling the bowl of the pelvis backward. So when you stick your tailbone out behind you, it creates an anterior tilt. When you tuck your tailbone under, creates a posterior tilt. We're going to find the neutral pelvis, remember, which is when we have the ASIS and the pubic bone lined up in a vertical plane with each other. So I'm going to have you find that on your own body. That's the best way to do it. So find your ASIS, the anterior superior iliac spine. It's like the frontmost pointy points of your pelvis. So come up here and show you. You can put your hands on your iliac crest and then sort of slide the hands forward until you get a sense of the pointy front point there. Mine isn't very prominent, but I can just kind of get a sense of generally where that is, ASIS. I'm going to hold my thumbs there and then put my fingers on the pubic bone down here. And then I have my hands on my bony pelvis. I can really get a sense of where is my pelvis in space. And you can tilt your pelvis around and just feel that move. So tuck your tailbone under, take it out behind you, and kind of feel that back and forth. And in standing and in sitting, play around with this and see what it takes to get to neutral, which is where basically pubic bones and ASIS are lined up together in a vertical plane. It's a little awkward position for the wrists, but it's really the best way to feel this that I found. And kind of get to know what your habits are. Where do you tend to hold your pelvis when you sit, when you stand, and all that kind of stuff. And if you're someone who does a lot of forward weight shifting when you're standing, like throw your pelvis forward, then when you do that, the tailbone automatically tucks under. So sometimes when you just pull your weight back over your heels, the pelvis lands in a more neutral place. And a whole lot of us tend to just kind of lean forward a little bit. And when we do, that changes the whole geometry of the body in an interesting way. One of the ways is usually tucks the tailbone under. So when you come down to sitting, it's even trickier to find that unless you're well elevated. So a little inquiry for you will be to find out how much support do you need underneath you in order to get your pelvis to settle to neutral in sitting. So for me, I need probably a couple blankets, a bolster's even better. And that's where the pelvis rolls to neutral. Now, why do I care? In sitting, I care because that means my spine has a solid foundation to sit upon, right? The spine just sits on top of the pelvis. And when the pelvis is neutral, the spine is free. It's just more free. And when my pelvis is more posterior in sitting, I'm relying more on my hip flexors to literally hold me up. But when I come to neutral in sitting, then my bones are holding me up more. So I have a little less, it's less effortful. So I want you to play around with that and see what you find about your own pelvic habits, pelvic positioning habits, and what does it take to get your pelvis to neutral in a standing position? What does it take to get your pelvis to neutral in a sitting position? On another month, we'll talk all about the pelvic floor muscles, and that'll be another reason why we're so interested in neutral pelvis, because it impacts the way that our pelvic floor muscles can work. They want to work as they already know how, and a neutral pelvis optimizes their ability to work. So that's just a little side note that we'll get to some other time. But as far as the sacroiliac joint goes, when we come to neutral, we are engaging gently some muscles that literally hug the joint. So multifidus is activated, especially if we're tending to be a mother tucker and we kind of untuck just a little bit. That action of untucking the tailbone just a little bit activates multifidus in the lumbosacral area, and it can feel really like huggy, stabilizing, and good. And if we are mother tucking, remember we're kind of putting some added strain across the ligaments that hold the pelvis together, the sacroiliac ligaments. So I just want to do a little demo about how to find neutral pelvis and what all those tilting things mean. So I look forward to hearing from you in our live session together this month about what you learned about your pelvic positioning habits. I'll see you then.